Starting off at number 10 now, we have the Oldsmobile. This one comes from Thought Catalog. One user said, my daughter was driving from Wichita Falls, Texas to Oklahoma City on I-44 to catch our plane home to Philadelphia. It was 4:05 a.m. I remember because I was afraid we'd miss our flight and the highway was empty. We were almost out of Lawton city limits when we saw an older model car, light blue or silver, launch off an embankment, roll 3 or 4 times end over end. I could actually see a human fly through the air. I pulled over and called 911 and gave them the GPS coordinates of the overpass. I asked the dispatch if I should back down the highway and she told me not to because there was an officer less than 2 minutes away. 20 minutes later I got a call from the police asking exactly where it was. I repeated the info. The officer said he was sitting at that location and there was nothing there. Not a skid mark, broken glass or flattened grass. Nothing at all. When I got home I googled it. This is what I found out. Exactly 10 years prior, a group of teenagers were speeding down a suburban road when they lost control, flipped over a guide rail and rolled down the embankment. All 6 kids were killed. They were driving a 1986 Oldsmobile. The time of the accident, 4:05 a.m. It's a classic case of a phantom crash. We've talked about that before on the channel. Some people dismiss them, but others say that ghosts are formed when people die in intense moments with unfinished business here on Earth. A car crash does seem like it might fit the bill there pretty well. Moving on to number 9 now, we have the cemetery. This one comes from Thought Catalog again, where one girl said, I live in a small town in South Texas. When I was 19, a boyfriend of mine, myself and 2 other friends were driving down an old back road towards a cemetery that hadn't been used since the 1800s. It was about 3 a.m. and we pulled up into the cemetery only to see off in the distance 4 white hooded figures circling a grave in the distance. We didn't stay long enough to investigate. We turned around and left real quick. Yeah, I think they made the right call there. People in hoods standing in a cemetery that hasn't been used in well over 100 years. They're probably not having a picnic, are they? No sandwiches there. Coming at number 8 now, we have the fog. This one comes from Thought Catalog again, where someone said, I was driving home from work about 2 a.m. It was a beautiful night, so I decided to take a route home that was more in the country instead of through town. I had to cross an old bridge that had been there probably 80 to 100 years. There's no houses or lights except my headlights. Just as my front tires hit the bridge, a red fog rolls across it. The hair stood up on the back of my neck and I got across that bridge as fast as possible. After I got across it, I looked in my mirror and the fog is gone, but it looked like someone was standing in the middle of the bridge. I mentioned it to my parents the next morning and my dad said he'd always heard stories about that bridge and supposedly a young lady hung herself from it. Nope. If that happened to me, I would just leave that bridge alone. That bridge belongs to the ghost girl forever. Let her keep it. I'll go around, swim. At the number 7 spot now, guys, we have The Whisper. This is another one from Thought Catalog, where a guy said, driving home from work one night, exhausted after working a double shift, I was on the freeway and fell asleep behind the wheel. I heard a woman's voice very gently whisper in my ear. She said, wake up. Just loud enough to wake me up, but not startle me awake. I woke up just in time to avoid colliding with a bunch of rogue construction barrels. That was like 20 years ago, and I never forgot that voice. Well, okay, it's great that they heard the whisper. It might have actually saved their life, but it's still really creepy. What do you guys think the explanation is for this? Was it just a voice in their head, perhaps, or something a bit more supernatural? At the number 6 spot now, we have Dog's Eyes. Shep Big Strong Fella on Reddit said, I was driving a van across Switzerland on the Autobahn in the dark, very little lighting as I came down the hillside into a valley. I noticed what I thought was a man running down the right-hand lane in the distance at 2 to 2:30 a.m. There was some moonlight. As I get closer, he's running really strangely, like loping. So as I'm going past him, out of politeness and not to blind him, I flick my main beams off, and as I do it, he turns his head around and his eyes are reflected like a dog. Every hair stood up on my body. I put my foot down. There were no woods around or houses, and the nearest town must have been 30 miles away. Truly terrifying. I agree. I think that's very creepy. Whenever someone shows a sort of animalistic nature, even if it's like the accidental reflection from their eyes, Guys, it's pretty terrifying stuff, especially alone on a road at night. Moving on to number 5 now, we have The Stranger. This one comes from Reddit user Smuffy72. He said, I used to work second shift. I got off around 11:30 one night, drove over to my girlfriend's house and stayed there for a few hours. A pretty bad thunderstorm started up and I decided to head home. My dog hates storms and didn't want to leave her alone. There's 2 ways back to my house from hers. One runs through town and takes 20 minutes or so. One is a single lane dirt road that only takes about 8 minutes. This night I chose the dirt road. There are no houses on this dirt road for about an 8-mile stretch. It's raining hard as well. I'm in the middle of the Alabama woods creeping down this dirt road. I come around a curve and there is a very large man standing right in the middle of the road wearing a black hoodie with his hood up, dark colored pants and dark shoes. I slammed on the brakes and stopped. He takes a few steps towards my truck and I freaked out and threw my truck into reverse, backed up, and he runs towards me and then darts into the woods. Due to being in the middle of nowhere, I didn't have cell reception, so as soon as I got home I called the cops and reported it. 2 nights later, a woman had a similar experience. He actually tried to get into her car. Police searched the woods several times and they found a camp but never found the actual guy. The thing I find crazy is that guy had a camp. When you think of a camp, you might think of like a summer camp or going camping with your friends. A murderer's camp though, not so appealing. Moving on to number 4 now guys, we have The Ent. This person on Reddit said, I was driving in the dark with my wife down a small country lane in rural Kent, UK. There were trees on both sides of the road. This particular part was a long steep hill going up and it was a fairly foggy night. Just 2 cars, me in front and this guy behind me, not close, who'd been there for a few miles. Suddenly, this giant shadowy tree ant-like figure literally loomed up and grew out of the road at the top of the hill, practically myself and started to slow. My wife made an odd noise as she noticed as well. It seemed like it was the headlights of the guy behind me and some tree branches, and they were all reflecting onto the fog like a screen. Not unexplainable, but definitely the scariest in the moment. Yeah, I can see where he's going with this one. I'm sure that stuff is totally explainable. Probably is just a strange shadow or the human brain playing tricks, or maybe it was an actual ent and the trees have finally come to life to take their revenge upon humanity. They're all equally valid theories. Next up at number 3 now, we have the friendly advice. This one came from Thought Catalog where someone said, I had pulled over one night to fuss at my 2 younger children. A car pulled up beside me and told me that there had been a wreck over the next hill and traffic was stopped. They suggested that I take a side road that detoured the wreck. I thanked them and they left. I decided to not take the road because I'm from the country and didn't want to get lost. As I drove by the detour road, I looked over and saw the couple had stopped and gotten out of their car. There was nothing but woods all around. It was just getting dark and that's all I could see. The next morning, as I drove by the same road, I saw the dead end sign just past where the couple had gotten out of their car. It still gives me chills when I drive past it now, and it's been 15 years since it happened. That is terrifying. I mean, it's one thing being scared of nature or the dark or just kind of natural things around you, but how creepy would it be knowing that those people were probably planning on jumping you? Moving on to number 2 now, we have The Flames. Volunteer Magic said, I was on a road trip with my wife at the time and her kid. I believe this happened after we passed through New Mexico and went into Texas. It was 3 AM and we came over a large hill and everything is on fire. Just fields and fields of fire. It looked like the goddamn apocalypse. I had no clue what I was looking at, but my wife at the time and her kid were completely asleep, so I had no one that could bear witness to this, and I didn't want to wake anyone up because, wow, how would you like it if you got woken up and everything was on fire? That does sound pretty terrifying. Can you guys even imagine waking up in the car and just seeing pure fire everywhere, as far as the eye can see? Some people commented suggesting that it's probably farmers doing controlled burns, a fairly common practice in tall grass prairies. That's a comforting explanation to hear now, but probably of no help when you're right in the middle of it. And finally, number 1 now, we have white t-shirt and jeans. This one also came from an anonymous user from Reddit who said, coming home from a night shift, driving down a back road I traveled literally thousands of times. On one side of the road there is a 6-foot drop. On onto train tracks. The other side runs vertically up a hillside approximately 25 miles. No guardrails. In my headlights, I saw a young man dressed in a white shirt and dark pants suddenly dart out into the road from the hillside, stop in the middle of the road to look at my truck, and then sprint over to the other side and down the embankment. I slammed on my brakes, got out with the flashlight from under my seat, and ran to the trackside thinking he had to be hurt. Nothing. Absolutely quiet except the sound of my truck engine. I got home, which took all of about 5 minutes in my mind since I was shaking so hard, and said something to my dad. He grinned from ear to ear and told me it was probably the guy who was killed on that road when my dad was in high school. White t-shirt and jeans was what he was wearing. Whoever hit him ditched his body on the tracks and just left. The sheriff found him the next morning. He does that every once in a while to people driving that road alone at night. Scared the crap out of you, didn't he? I laughed and nodded. Wow, the story was great, but honestly, the ending to it was a little bit weird. I wonder why they were laughing about that pretty horrifying experience. Probably just nervous laughter. Starting off at number 10 now, we have Unresolved Mysteries. I absolutely love this one. You guys may have heard of it. It's quite a popular subreddit with almost 500,000 subscribers. Every one of those people is fascinated with creepy, old, unsolved mysteries. Many of them involve missing people or cold case murder victims. The stories themselves are very interesting to hear. Some people enjoy the challenge of figuring out what happened, almost as if they're a detective in real life. Now you may think this is futile, especially if the case has been cold for 50 years, but sometimes it works. There have been occasions on this subreddit where people seem to have helped solve crimes from decades ago. One example is the Strongsville Jane Doe, a woman found dead in 1975 whose murder police just couldn't solve. Some Redditors got digging, and amazingly, one of their investigations helped actually solve who the woman was. Of course, this is a rare and happy occasion. Next up at number 9 now, we have No Sleep. This subreddit describes itself as a place for realistic horror stories. Everything is true here, even if it's not. It's been around for years now and has become quite the hub for people to share horror stories that blur the line between truth and fiction. One of the scary things is though, despite the fact that many of the stories are fictional, some of them are definitely true. Famous one being The Smiling Man. That eventually got made into a short film, which is very creepy if you haven't seen it already. This whole aspect of the subreddit adds another creepy dimension to it. You know that some of the creepy stories people tell here are fictional, but some of them are real. If you don't know which ones are real, there's a chance that every single one could be. And after you read a few of the bone-chilling stories on there, you'll really be hoping none of them are true. Next up at number 8 now, we have Let's Not Meet. This subreddit is described as a place to read true stories about people you never want to meet again. And I think that sums it up perfectly. The stories are, as far as I can tell, 100% true. The people they are talking about appear to be real. They're actually out there in the world. Going into the stories with this knowledge makes them especially creepy. Even one look at the most popular titles can put some people off. One is called I Survived a Mass. Another is titled The Day I Woke Up Late May Have Saved My Life. These stories have tens of thousands of upvotes between them. Some have even been read by 100,000 people. There's a very good reason for that. They're very creepy. Some people actually enjoy these stories more than the paranormal ones. You know, we can debate all day about whether ghosts and spirits are real, but everyone can agree that there are creepy, deranged people out there. This subreddit lets you hear about them, perhaps as a way to defend yourself if you ever find yourself in a similar situation. Next up at number 7 now, we have Old School Creepy. What is it about the past that just makes things seem creepier? It seems that the further back we go, old pictures and videos just have a kind of uncanny feel to them, as if the security and comfort we find in our modern age just wasn't around back then. Do you know what I mean? If you do, then you may love this subreddit. Despite only having 31,000 subscribers, it's produced a lot of creepy content, often from people's home collections. There's one of a guy's auntie holding human bones she found in her garden. Then there's the famous image of the Mickey Mouse Club in the 1930s, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. If you're the kind of person that finds images from before you were born kinda unsettling, you'll love this, or hate this, or love it and hate it. Just check it out. Moving on to number 6 now, we have glitch in the matrix. A glitch in the matrix has become a phrase used to describe something not quite right in the world. A small detail that you just can't stop thinking about. Something that goes against all logic and reason. Perhaps you saw the same person get off and on the train at the same time. Perhaps you sometimes see an old woman turn the corner of a road and then just disappear. These are glitch in the matrix stories. Things that don't seem creepy at first, but really are when you compare them with the reality that you've grown to expect. If I'm not doing a very good job of explaining it, perhaps the community itself can. They say this is a place to share the things we usually tell ourselves to forget because they're just too out of step with what experience tells us reality should be like. The most popular story on there by far is titled "My Fan Won't Stop Talking to Me." It's about a bedroom fan that won't stop talking to this guy. It was so loved by the community that it's been archived on there forever. If you think you can handle it, be my guest. Let me know what you think of it in the comment section on this video. Coming at number 5 now, we have The Truth Is Here. This subreddit has a healthy subscriber count of almost 100,000 people. It describes itself as a database for personal encounters with the unknown. They say they archive non-fiction stories dealing with spirits, paranormal, strange happenings, and unexplained sightings. If you want the real deal, no fiction or exaggeration, this is the place for you. Some people enjoy No Sleep more because they can suspend their disbelief, but if you want to see and hear some real unexplained encounters, this is the place to check out. Even in my short time on this subreddit, I found a really weird story of someone encountering real-life mermaids in Iceland. There's also an amazing account of paranormal experiences from someone who is part of the Navajo Nation of Native Americans. The things he's seen and experienced will send chills down your spine. They're very different from your average run-of-the-mill paranormal encounter. Moving on to number 4 now, we have creepy Wikipedia. I honestly love this one. Have you guys ever got lost on Wikipedia before? You click one article, it mentions another one, you click that, you're on another one, soon you're tumbling down a rabbit hole, reading things that you never even wanted to read. Sometimes people have stumbled across articles that will send chills down your spine. They're the kind of articles that nobody would actually search for, you just kind of have to end up there. Well, when that happens, the people of creepy Wikipedia share what they find with everyone else. This way, you can go straight to the good stuff without having to fall down a rabbit hole yourself. This one is not for the faint-hearted, guys. I'm not kidding. Unlike YouTube, Wikipedia has much looser rules on what can or can't be talked about. You have been warned. Next up at number 3 now, we have the 3 Kings. This is a small subreddit for creepy rituals. You know the ones I mean. They usually involve mirrors, a dark room, perhaps a candle, and chanting certain words or phrases over and over again. If done properly, some say these rituals can reveal spirits, demons, or other kinds of paranormal beings. Subscribers to this subreddit share the ones they've heard about and the ones they've tried, and also feedback from others when they do it themselves. Because of the copying nature of this, some refer to this as ritual creepypastas, a play on creepypasta, which is where people copy and paste scary text stories. Many users argue that the point of the rituals aren't to scare people or summon spectral beings, but to help them explore the inner workings of their mind. Perhaps this is actually what scares people though. When people delve into their own minds in the middle of a room by themselves at night, strange things can arise. If you think you can handle it though, you know where to find it. At number 2 now, we have the Library of Shadows. If you remember earlier, we talked about No Sleep. Well, the Library of Shadows is sometimes described as a more adult version of that. The authors who share their stories here are sometimes experienced writers, perhaps even published. Whatever their level though, they always pour as much horror and fear into their stories as they can muster. The subreddit is smaller than No Sleep as well, which allows people to be heard better and have a good shot at their story making it onto the front page. Famous stories include The Spy in the Woods by The Boy in the Clock and Finding Vanessa by Insomnia Mnemonic. Sometimes these stories can reach up to part 6, 7, 8, 9 and beyond. Each part is hundreds of words long. In the Library of Shadows, you're essentially getting a short horror story for absolutely free. And finally, number 1 now, we have Humanoid Encounters. If this one was called Human Encounters, it wouldn't be scary at all. That's just when you meet another human. But humanoid That's creepy. This subreddit is a place for encounters with beings who resemble humans but are just a little bit off. Have you guys ever experienced this? Have you ever met someone who seems like a normal human but there's something very inhuman about them at the same time? I'm not talking about them being a bit weird or eccentric, that's fine. I mean a feeling deep in your chest that the person in front of you isn't human. Of course, that doesn't mean the feeling is right, but this subreddit contains some very creepy stories from people who have experienced that feeling. Some of the stories are written with a presumption that the people in question are actually aliens. Now, maybe they are, maybe they aren't. That's not really the point. It's the stories that matter, the journey, and as scary stories go, Humanoid Encounters has some of the best I've seen.
Starting us off, in at number 10, we have a sound that had a whole city complain about it, but no one can explain what this sound was.
Police have been inundated with 911 calls.
Are you calling about loud music?
So this scary, mysterious sound seemed to be coming from a river located in New Jersey. Late at night, while most residents are fast asleep, this loud noise happened. Police have been called many times about all these noise complaints, but there was just nothing that they can do about it. There was nothing they could do about the airy noises that were being made. If this was me, I would for sure skip on the complaining part and move right along into the moving out part, move to another city. I would get myself away from this noise so damn fast. I mean, this noise was created by nobody, possibly created by aliens or something. Maybe this is a warning sign to get out. At number 9, I wouldn't move too quickly to the UK, where this strange trumpet noise was heard coming from the sky.
Huh? The is it? It's coming from the sky.
So this guy heard this noise from the sky and decided to film it. Because that's what we do in 2019. It was kind of hard to listen to the noise while this guy was inside, but it gets really loud and very scary when the guy went outside to film. Is this real life right now? I would honestly think the world is ending, or is coming to an end very, very soon. Or something unbelievable was going to happen. Maybe alien invasion, or some creatures that were about to make contact with us here on Earth. Here's another audio of the same sound, but in a different location. These workers were in a forest when they heard the trumpet-like sound. I mean, this gets quite loud. Moving into number 8, we have the terrifying and loud sounds from Hurricane Ike. This was the devastating hurricane that hit North America back in 2008. This was a Category 4 major hurricane that caused $38 billion worth in damages, which made this hurricane the 6th costliest hurricane in the United States and the costliest in Cuban history. So the audio I'm about to share with you guys was filmed on the 11th floor of a resort hotel. Listen to this. I mean, this is what nightmares are made of. For sure, this could be used for a scene of a horror movie, if it wasn't already used. See, I told you guys in a previous video, wind is very scary. Wind is one of my biggest fears. Let me know what is your biggest fear in the comment section below. Mine is wind. Alright, so now that we all know that I'm afraid of wind, let's move on to scary screams in at number 7. In this next clip that I'm about to show you guys, you'll hear some diabolic laughter and screeching. This was recorded late at night on a reserve, and I don't know about you guys, but I wouldn't stick around long enough to capture the sound on camera. Well, let's have a listen to what this person was able to capture instead of running away. What do you guys think is making this sound? At first, I thought it was some crazy person terrorizing the city, terrorizing the streets. Like, it honestly sounds like the Purge or something is about to go down. Or maybe an SCP broke out of containment. All I know is I would be inside of my car, driving as fast as I can to the next state over. Now at number 6, we have a scary sound from the ocean. I already think that the ocean is a scary place. I mean, 95% of the world's ocean is left unexplored. So who knows what is lurking at the bottom of it? It's pretty dark and it's probably really cold down there. We can have a new killer species living down there and we would have no idea. With that in mind, let's listen to a creepy audio from the ocean. Oh, and just a warning, if you're home alone right now and you get scared pretty easily, I'd probably plug my ears for this clip because it's actually really terrifying. This audio was recorded off the coast of Antarctica, and it made national news. Some people think that this is a sound from an iceberg scraping the ocean floor. Others think it's a whale, but my favorite theory, this could be the sound of Cthulhu waking up from his beauty sleep. But whatever the heck it is, hopefully not Cthulhu, this sound is a great reminder that the ocean is a big mysterious place that requires more exploration. But if it was up to me, I would leave that stuff, unexplored. Let's take this list to outer space, and at number 5. Have you guys ever heard what Saturn sounds like? No? Well, buckle up, because you're in for a treat. This video is giving me some serious PTSD. Why are wind sounds so freaking scary? Am I the only one here? This audio was taken from a radio emissions from Saturn, and it was converted so that humans can hear it. I think we'd be better off not hearing this sound. I imagine this is what hell would sound like. So yeah, remind me to never ever take a trip to Saturn, because I don't think I'd be able to live with hearing this sound every single day. So you know what? Saturn, it's just not for me. Next up, number 4, we have The Wandering Soul. This is actually an audio mix that the US military used during the Vietnam War. This audio was used against the enemy to scare them into submission. This would for sure submit me. You tell me if this would work on you guys. I just find this audio to be extremely annoying. If I heard this as an American soldier, I'd want to go home too. But when you really think about it, this audio is extremely terrifying, because just imagine being a Vietnamese soldier, patrolling through the jungle, and it's pitch black, and then you hear this sound off in the distance. I would be running. Moving up this list, and at number 3, we have schizophrenia. This next audio clip is a representation of what a person with schizophrenia would hear in their mind. It's a good way for others to try and, get a better understanding of what they're experiencing. But prepare yourselves, it isn't easy to listen to. Listen to this.
So stupid. Look at you. No, you can't. Stupid. Poison. Cars. Jump now. Jump in front of the car. Go on. Do it.
I couldn't even listen to the entire recording because it made me too anxious. I couldn't imagine having these voices in my head 24/7. You know what? I'm scared and I only listened to like 20 seconds of it. Number 2. What do you guys think that sounded like? Well, let me know in the comment section below. Let's hear it one more time. I think this sound should have its own creepypasta. I mean, this is the first known recording of a human voice. The original recording dates back to 1860, and all I have to say is that I'm super grateful for autotune, but all jokes aside, this is pretty amazing if you think about that there's something about this recording that gives me chills. So let's try and forget about this one, forget about this creepy voice, and let's move on. Finally, number 1 spot, we have a very loud sound that came from the skies in Terrace or British Columbia, which is in Canada. What you're about to hear was heard by thousands of confused people around 7 in the morning. And I warn you guys, it's kinda loud and it's hella annoying. Maybe the heavens are opening up and that's the noise it makes. I'm not sure why God is making so much noise 7 in the morning, but that must be a pretty terrifying thing to wake up to. Well, Kimberly Wookie was the one that uploaded this clip onto YouTube, and it has over 6.5 million views at the time of this recording. And she said in the description, "This is not fake or a hoax. What I recorded is what I woke up to this morning. The original files is on my camcorder, which can be examined for authenticity." She also went on to say this wasn't the first time she heard these sounds. The first time she heard it was in June of that year at 9 or 9:30 in the morning. I think the Men in Black, Ed or Lorraine Warren, maybe Ghostbusters, Sam and Dean Winchester, or even a priest should be investigating all of these sounds.